y'all. Welcome back to this week's episode of AMA Friday with Amy Miller, Recruiting in Yoga Pants. So we're going to talk about kind of picking up on a thread from last week's video. So if you've not seen that one, go check it out. I'll link to it up above. Last week I talked about how to read a job description like a recruiter. I encouraged y'all to hone in on hard skills, requirements, role-related bullet points, things that you can measure, that kind of stuff. I actually pulled a random job description and I walked you through how I would search for the person for that role if I was their recruiter. I am not. I don't even remember the company I got the job from. It's not the point. So hopefully that gave y'all some insight last week. We had a good conversation in the comments and on LinkedIn. And a few of you poked a little fun at me. I laughed, it's fine. But there was definitely some joking about, okay, great, so you want to see fast learner on my resume. No, I do not. So this week I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that, and especially for those job descriptions that do include a fair amount of fluff and do have, the silly, I can't even think of one. My head's starting to hurt just even trying to come up with something fluffy because I hate it so much. But anyway, team player. Okay, fine. Team player. Here's the reality. When I am reviewing the resume, I am not looking for any of those things at all. Not even remotely. Because the purpose of the resume is to spark enough interest that I want to interview you and learn more. I just want to make sure there is a potential role fit from a very technical or role-related hard skill perspective. That is the one job your resume has. Spark enough interest that they want to learn more. Now, the purpose of the interview process, and this is everything from the initial recruiter phone screen all the way through the final on-site or virtual on-site interview with leadership or whoever, the purpose of that is twofold. Number one, we want to validate what we think we know about you from a hard skill perspective, okay? Yeah, this person has the right years of experience. They've, gave us some examples of some great accomplishments that have kind of, aligned to the work that they would do here. They've said they have some familiarity or knowledge or expertise in this tool, that program, these concepts, whatever. So we're going to take those assumptions based on what we read, and we're going to validate that through the interview process. So we're going to dig into that background. We're going to ask you questions about how you did this thing or what you would do in that situation. I have a lot of thoughts on behavioral versus hypothetical team behavioral questions, but I know not everybody is. Argue about that amongst yourselves and check out my video about behavioral interviewing because I'm a fan. But again, no, not everybody is. That's okay. But we're validating that initial hard data, right? We're making sure that, you can back up what you said. And this ultimately does fit what we need and so on. So where do the soft skills come into play here? We are also vetting the soft skills during the interview. So, and it may even be at the recruiter phone screen stage, right? The recruiter might ask some questions about how do you partner with others, and tell me about a time you disagreed with your manager and what did you do? Maybe there's an opportunity during that initial phone screen. Maybe the hiring team digs into it during the formal interview. Every company is going to set that up a little bit differently. But notice we're not looking for it on the resume. We're actually having a conversation with you about it, right? It doesn't have to be on the resume, but you do want to be prepared to talk through it because it's most likely going to come up. Now, not every company is as transparent as I would like them to be about these kinds of things and the kinds of questions they might ask. Definitely the job description can give you some insight. If they're all fluffy and talking about, we all sit around the fire pit and drink IPAs and congratulate each other on being awesome and working here, then that's probably something you want to understand is coming and how that will be represented during the interview process. But there are other companies who actually do a pretty good job of laying out their culture. One of those companies is my friends down the road. They're pretty far from me, actually. A couple hours probably. I live out in the sticks all the way north. But a company called Blue Origin, which happens to be they build rockets. And they have what they call leadership principles. May not be the only company that you've heard of that has something like leadership principles. Google it. But Blue Origin has leadership principles, or as some might call them, LPs. And a couple of those, I'm just going to call out a couple of my favorites. Their LPs include bias for action and deliver results. I'm looking at their website right now, their careers page. Full disclosure, I do not work for Blue Origin. I have never worked for Blue Origin. I'm not saying I wouldn't someday in the future. You never know. But they seem great. I like their leadership principles. But those are two of them, right? So bias for action, deliver results. Might be other companies out there having similar LPs, but we'll talk about Blue for today's purposes. These are potentially examples of soft skills that you might need to talk through during the interview. So I like the way they kind of set this up. My vision, I would hope this is something that's happening. I've never interviewed at Blue, so I can't say for sure. But I would hope that the recruiter who's helping these candidates navigate their interview process with this company are maybe telling them like, hey, here's the leadership principles that are going to come up. These are the soft skills that matter, right, for our interview process. Or we're going to cover these 3 or those 7, or I don't know how many they might cover. Hopefully not too many, because got to get the hard stuff in there too. But so I'm just going to read to you bias for action. It says, speed matters in business. Many decisions and actions are reversible and do not need extensive study. Okay, I can dig it. They value calculated risk taking. So that could be like, how would that potentially be a soft skill? This is a self-starter. This is somebody who just jumps in, like solves problems, recognizes, hey, I can undo this if it doesn't work, but I'm going to give it a try, right? That could be a great soft skill. But it's not necessarily on your resume. And it doesn't need to be, friends. That's the whole point of this week's video. It does not need to be on the resume, because the resume's purpose is to get an invitation to the conversation. Once you have an invitation to the conversation, that's where you're going to call up your recruiter. You're going to take them up on that interview prep call that they better be offering you, and you're going to dig in. If it's Blue Origin or similar companies that have similar processes and kind of culture stuff on their careers page or what have you, you can start asking questions like, hey, I've read this about the work culture here, right? How is this going to be covered during my interview? What do I need to prepare? What does good look like, right? If we're looking at another one of their LPs is show grit. That's cool. I've never heard this one before, actually. Show grit. Leaders convey optimism. They say, let's figure it out. They take setbacks in stride. Like, I can dig that. This is actually a new one to me. I might spend a little time reading up on some of these. These are cool. But I like the way that they have this positioned, because I think as a potential, maybe someday future candidate, I get an idea of the soft skills that matter most to them. And my recruiter, ideally, is able to kind of walk me through, hey, for this specific job, these are the ones that really matter, and these are the kinds of questions you can expect, or this is what good looks like when you're walking us through examples that show how you showed grit, right? So your personal mileage, of course, is going to vary widely depending on the organizations that you're applying to, depending on the level of effort that the recruiter puts into helping you prepare. But just keep in mind, y'all, again, that resume has a single purpose. It is to get you invited to the conversation. Once that conversation has been requested, once that interview is now being scheduled and you're in process talking to human beings, that's when we want to bring out those soft skills, and that's when we want to show through data, through experience, through examples and accomplishments, how we are the best possible fit, or at least a really good fit for the role that we're interviewing for. All right, friends, I hope that helps. Went on a little bit of a tangent there for a minute, but really wanted to put y'all at ease as far as like the distinction between the resume and the interview process. They serve different purposes. Please don't over-index too hard on the soft skills on your resumes. I'm not saying leave it out entirely. One of those things you probably want to A/B test a little bit. Do you get better results with, without, whatever? But again, nothing, and I mean nothing, is going to trump a clearly articulated hard skill fit. Gotta see that first. Everything else comes after. All right, friends. We'll see you next week.